In Starksboro, Vermont, when outside air temps drop below zero, on nights that feel like -20 with the wind chill, inside unheated tunnels, hardy greens stay alive above their killing point under multiple layers of cover. On just 1.5 acres of growing space, the farmers at Footprint Farm support over 150 families year-round.
There's this community that grows up around a farm. And I think a big piece of that is because we as humans are driven to create community around a table, around meals. And our farm, I feel like, has been pulled into people's homes, and we're part of that dinner conversation in so many households now that this community that we've created through our CSA program is just it's addictive and it's supportive.
Taylor Mendell's path to farming started in a California children's hospital.
I first got into agriculture more in an educational capacity because I was working in a children's hospital and I was doing a lot of nutrition education and felt like working with kids before they needed nutrition education because of a medical diagnosis felt much more fulfilling to me. So that first internship that I had was teaching kids on a farm. So not doing a whole lot of farming itself, but working with kids through field trips. I went on from there to do more of the farming part because I just found it to be fascinating.
When she and her husband, Jake, moved to Vermont in 2013, they made a critical mistake.
We realized pretty early on that our California farming experience was not translatable to Vermont at all. We spent most of our initial investment on irrigation, and then we had one of the wettest years on record.
By year 3, everything felt out of control.
The first few years are really hard and confusing, and you're not making a lot of money and you're trying things and maybe they work out. Usually they don't, or at least in our experience. And I was feeling like I didn't have any control over anything. It just felt like I would throw stuff at the wall and maybe it would stick.
So Taylor became obsessed with brain psychology and habit formation.
So I started getting really into books about habit forming, about the brain psychology. I was trying to start an exercise habit because I thought maybe if I exercised regularly, I would feel better. I was so fascinated by how our brains form habits that I really nerded out on it and started talking to people about it. It got to the point where I thought, I think this would work really well in farming. And so we sat down after our third or fourth season and we were writing a business plan so that we could get a loan in order to build our wash pack facility. And as we were trying to write this business plan, we came up with a step by step business analysis. My husband and I work really well with lists and how to's and things like that. And so we made a way for us to look at what we had been doing, to set priorities and to plan. And the process worked so darn that we've been doing it each winter.
Here's their production system.
We have not very much usable space because most of our land is forested or wetland. So we have 2.5 acres outdoors that we can use, and we're just growing on 1.5 acres, and then we keep 1 acre in cover crop. So we split that 2.5 acres up into half-acre blocks, and they go through a 5-year rotation. And then we have that about quarter-acre in unheated high tunnels.
That full acre of cover crop isn't optional.
The way for us to scale up would be to fill out that acre of cover crop. And we have an incredibly sandy soil and have a really hard time holding on to nutrients. And in order to improve our soil structure, those cover crops have felt really important. We also have gotten black rot a couple years in our brassicas. We don't have enough space to really rotate. And so having that cover crop to break up disease cycle has been really crucial. And I think the only way that we could replace that would be to bring in compost. And in our area, we have amazing quality of compost, but it's not affordable in our budget to cover the farm in the way that we would need to.
Winter production all happens in a quarter acre of unheated high tunnels. Following methods pioneered by growers like Eliot Coleman, each inner layer of row cover adds several degrees of cold protection to the crops.
2 or 3 layers of the 30 weight covers.
Inner covers trap radiated heat from the soil and reduce convective loss. On clear nights, that's often the difference between frozen and marketable product. But protection isn't enough. Timing is everything. Below 10 hours of daylight, plants hold rather than grow. Crops must reach marketable size before that pause in growth. The bottleneck is germination.
So we're using it for things that we would normally direct seed, but because it's so cold in our tunnels, they wouldn't germinate or they would rot or they would grow so slowly that we wouldn't get harvest off them.
So everything starts as transplants in their one propane heated propagation space. The numbers tell the real story.
Here we'll have a CSA that starts in April and ends the week before Christmas. This year, probably about 75% of our business.
The remaining 25% comes from caterers, restaurants, and grocery stores. Expect winter harvests to be lighter and slower. This scale requires help. Keeping modest winter work helps retain trained crews, so spring startup is much faster and smoother.
Our employees have come back every year since they've started, unless they moved for love or something like that. But to create a place where I know there's a lot of turnover in agricultural employees and to create a place that they enjoy coming to, even though I know it's hard work, I know they could be making more money somewhere else. I'm really proud of that.
Their speciality makes sense for their context.
I think our greens are really what we've become known for, and that ranges by season. So, our goal is that we have fresh greens in some capacity available year round. Right now, it's mostly spinach and kale. And then we typically will supply restaurants with a rotating salad greens mix for most of the year.
Language matters. Spicy scares customers. Zesty lures them in and sells.
In the springtime, we do this baby mustards mix that we call a zesty mix. So, we sell a lot of.
Copy the principles, layers, timing, transplants, and planning. Adapt the details, varieties, dates, and tools to your zone, soil, and markets.
I personally have some physical limitations, some injuries that make hand work really difficult for me.
So they found tractor implements that mimic hand tools.
We were mostly using hand tools to prep our beds. So we looked for tractor based implements that could mimic those. So instead of a broad fork, we use a chisel plow. Instead of using rakes to mix in amendment, we use a disc harrow. And then instead of a bed rake for the final pass, we use a perfecta. And each of those are single bed width so that we can just work on one bed.
Spring in Vermont means everything goes in as transplants.
Everyone drops a tray in the beginning and has it spill out and have to ravel it back up. But after a season with it, everyone wants to be the one to do it. And it's really fun.
Even their name came from adapting to context. A misunderstanding in Hawaii about goat soap led to Footprint Farm. No goats, no soap, just vegetables.
Visited a farm in Hawaii the year before we started here, and they had goats, and we had been working with goats on the internship farms, and we'd been making goat milk soap. And so we were talking to the farmer about the goats, and she had just created this stamp with a goat hoof print to market her soaps. She was really excited about it. And I said, "Oh, that's so cute. I love that idea." And she thought that that meant that we were going to do the same thing and got very defensive. "That's my idea. You can't take it." And I thought, "Oh, okay. I don't think we're going to have goats. We were just making the soap on this farm." And I had to backpedal my way out of the conversation, and it got really awkward. And we're laughing about it later. And Jake's brother said, "Oh my gosh, what if you just started this whole goat enterprise that was based off of hoof prints in soap, and you could name it Footprint Farm?" And the whole car got quiet. And we thought, "Oh, that's a good name, actually." So we were having such a hard time finding a name that we could actually use, and Footprint Farm was available based on goat milk soap that we will never make.
Winter harvesting has its own rhythms. This isn't tech, it's timing and planning.
On our farm, it's having a plan that we believe in and that we're all on the same page. So we do a whole lot of planning. We have that big planning session in the wintertime, and we break it out by month. We have monthly goals that we share with our crew. So the beginning of the month, we have a longer morning meeting where we all get on the same page and goals are written on the wall.
Winter is not growth season for their business, it's relationship season.
There's something about small farms that brings communities together in a way that we've really lost in the last generation or two. And it's really interesting in Vermont because there are so many small farms, and it's really unusual if you don't know a farmer. Farms are still a part of the fabric of the community, and it just feels so right to me. And I want for that feeling to be accessible for more people. And I think it's a whole lot more than just feeding people. I think there's a lot of help that a farm can give humanity, a small farm can give humanity besides just food.
January spinach sells on freshness, locality, and scarcity. Be sure to communicate all three. To new farmers, Taylor's message is very clear.
It's hard. It's really hard. And in the beginning, you're going to see farms on Instagram or at a conference, and you're going to think, how are they doing it? And why am I not? And you're not supposed to be in the beginning. It's not going to happen overnight. We tapped into every single program that Vermont offers for education, for money, for equipment. And we've met people through those programs and gotten help, a lot of free, incredibly great free help through those programs.
1.5 acres, 150 families, over $200,000 in farm revenue, year-round production in Vermont. Not because they had all the answers, but because they kept asking the right questions. Thanks for watching this video featuring the farm profile of the amazing Footprint Farm in Starksboro, Vermont. Be sure to check them out on Instagram using the link below. And if you want to listen to the full interview with Taylor, you can also do so using a link below. And until next time, I appreciate you watching, but always be nice, be thankful, and do the work.